Touring 2008 on TSN is brought to you by the new Q horsepower from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses. And Michelin, a better way forward.
This week we're in the city of Calgary. You know, with the exception of the Stampede, this really is a one-horse town, and that horse is called oil. And they're pumping that black gold wherever they can find it throughout the province. But you know, if I told you to invest in a commodity that the rest of the world was cutting back on, you might think twice. But in Calgary, you snooze, you lose, because business is booming, and it's all because of oil. But despite that, gas prices at this moment are actually higher in Calgary than they are in Toronto. Jim Kenzie will have a few thoughts on that later on. Well, this week we're here to chat with a car company that might not be very popular here in Calgary because they're a leader in fuel-efficient and hybrid vehicles. That company, of course, is Toyota. And you know, right now the crossover market is really hot. And I almost forgot that Toyota was one of the first companies in this segment, but that was back in 2001. And this week we're here to check out only the second generation of the Toyota Highlander.
When we first introduced the Highlander, we were one of the first brands to introduce the crossover style of vehicle. But since then, there have been at least 10 to a dozen more that have arrived on the scene, and more coming each year. Should they be concerned? Well, like every new model that enters the marketplace, we are going to get our fair share of sales. And I think with this new model and the new packages put together by Chief Engineer O'Connie, it's going to be a dynamite package.
There's a general exodus out of minivans. People are still looking for the utility that they had in minivans, but they're just sick and tired of minivans. So they're going into vehicles like this, which frankly have all the capability of the minivan, just doesn't look like it.
Power has increased to 270 horsepower, and this is a new powertrain for the 2008 Highlander. It's a 3.5-liter V6. It's got dual-weight camshafts, it's got 4 valves per cylinder, and the main thing is got dual VVTi, meaning it's got variable valve timing on the intake and the exhaust side. Exceptional power and torque, and the torque curve is flatter, so you got a lot of grunt from a standstill and also for passing, so a lot of mid-range grunt. And tailpipe emissions are also significantly reduced.
Second version, but a lot of changes. Significantly different than the first time around. More power, that's probably the first thing that's evident. Power that was lacking in the first version and is much appreciated in this one. And a little bit stretched, a little bit bigger.
Toyota's been known for setting benchmarks. This one seems to set a benchmark both in horsepower and torque with their new V6. They seem to have set a benchmark in fuel economy. They're doing things that we used to only do in race cars. They're putting under trays on their car to bring the coefficient of drag down to get that last tenth in fuel economy.
No matter how many years we've all been driving, there's always some stress involved when you find yourself on a hill like this one, the light is red and somebody's right on your tail, especially with a manual transmission. But even in an automatic like this one on the Highlander, I mean, that light turns green, you take your foot off the brake, and of course that's what happens. Well, they have a feature called the Hill Assist program, not unique to Toyota, but what it does when you're sitting at the light, it will put hydraulic pressure on all 4 wheels. This is how it works. You put the transmission into neutral, put your foot on the brake and wait for the beep. There's the beep, put it back into drive, and away you go.
On the safety side, we have a full complement of airbags. So we've got dual airbags in the front, we've got side curtain airbags with the 3 rows, we've got seat side airbags, and the only vehicle in the segment to have driver's knee airbag. And to also add to that equation is we have enhanced vehicle stability control. So that gives a full safety complement to the 2008 Highlander. If you look at the styling of the vehicle, and you can study the lines, and it goes along the side of the vehicle to the rear, so there's a lot of sophisticated styling incorporated into the Highlander.
I don't think you can make an SUV stylish. I think you can make some look better than others, but style's the wrong term. I think this one looks okay. I don't know what they'll do for an Encore, but right now it fits right in with all the others stylistically that are on the market.
It's bland. It's typical Toyota. And for some people that's fine because it spells reliability. It's a solid, dependable vehicle, but simply put, it hits all the right notes. It's got everything you want. Now people are going to choose from their heart, from their emotion. They're going to go out and say, wow, this really grabs me. That's, I think, where this vehicle is going to lose some sales.
Toyota obviously likes to get things right, and from what I've seen in driving the two vehicles that I've been exposed to right now, they do have it right. The electric assist in power steering seems great. The vehicle's good and responsive. It's comfortable to drive. The seats are comfortable. The thing I like about it, having stubby little legs and a long body, is there's lots of headroom, even with the sunroof in place. They're doing well.
Coast to coast, what bugs me the most. More later on Kenzie's Corner.
Need a sleeper? Something that will slip by all but the most dialed-in radar? We've got just such the beast on this edition of Test Drive. Welcome to the Jeep Grand Cherokee SRT8. It is a monster. The reason for the SRT8 sleeper status is that it actually still looks like a Grand Cherokee at first blush. However, look a little more carefully and there are subtle differences. To begin with, the ride height drops by 25 mil, and there's a delightful body kit with deeper front and rear valances, as well as sill extenders. Then there's the wheel and tyre package. P255/45 front tyres and 285/40 rear run flat tyres mounted on the rear, all of which are stuck on 20-inch forged SRT8 rims. Whew. 4-piston Brembo brakes, vented rotors all round, 38 meters from 100 kilometers an hour. Now that's what you call stopping power. It's also fade-free thanks to the cooling ducts that run through the front valance and blow cold air on the front rotors. The real difference between the Mortal Grand and its sleeper sibling is found the instant the engine is cranked to life. Those tailpipes bark like a rabid dog whenever the gas pedal is blipped. Lift the hood and you see why. A 6.1-litre Hemi that puts out 420 horsepower and 420 pound-feet of torque at 4,800 RPM. The beauty is that regardless of the engine's speed, it has pull to spare. Around town it burbles along almost anonymously. Drop the hammer and let the engine wind its way up the rev range, and those stallions begin to pull with purpose. So how fast is that Jeep? Well, I'll tell you one thing, nothing quite prepares you for what happens when you hammer the gas pedal. It rips through 100 kilometers an hour in 4.9 seconds, and it'll turn the 80 to 120 trick in 3.7 seconds. Now, to put that into perspective, the $120,000 Range Rover Supercharged, well, it ambles its way to 100K in 6.7 seconds. More impressive is the fact that that $50,000 Jeep right there, well, it is as quick as the $125,000 Porsche Cayenne Turbo. Illustrious company indeed. To handle the power, the SRT8 marries the front half of a regular Grand Cherokee transfer case to a heavy-duty back end. Under normal circumstances, the system fires about 90% of the drive through a heavy-duty Dana 44 rear end and those massive tyres. The instant slippage occurs, the system redistributes the power. It's such that it's almost impossible to break the rubber free. As a result, the stability and traction control systems remain dormant most of the time. The interior differences to the SRT8 are just as subtle as the exterior touches. To begin with, there's some carbon fiber-like material on the shifter knob and steering wheel. There's SRT8 on the tack, and it's embroidered on these wonderful deep dish front seats. Now these things do a very good job of keeping you planted when you play. You can also load it up to the nines. Everything from a navigation system to a Boston acoustic sound system to a DVD-based entertainment system with wireless headphones. You can get the lot. It's understated, but it's luxurious nonetheless. The SRT8 suspension has been completely reworked. The front knuckles, springs, dampers, anti-roll bars and bushings are all different and designed to handle the lateral and braking forces exerted on the chassis whenever the SRT8 is driven to potential. Now while the ride is firm, it's not harsh. This means there's no body roll, and because of that all-wheel drive system and those massive tyres, finding understeer, well, it takes more nerve than I possess. This really is an extraordinary vehicle because you give up none of the utility of the Grand Cherokee, and yet it's got grip and power to spare. Now on the subject of power, if you decide to go with that Range Rover Supercharged, well, they'll charge you a little over $300 for each horsepower. If you go with the Porsche Cayenne Turbo, well, it gets a little more affordable at $248 per stallion. However, the 6.1 litre Hemi under this hood, well, Jeep will charge you just under $120 per stallion. And that's what you call bang for the buck.
Michelin, a better way forward.
The American Le Mans Series made its Canadian stop at Mosport this past summer. The weekend also was a chance to look to the future with the Formula BMW Series.
This is a great series. It's a developmental series for 15 to 22-year-olds. It gets them into open wheel racing and professional racing at an entry level, but we run in great tracks and it's great competition.
We take kids who have just come up from karting, and we surround them in a program that really helps them develop not only their racing skills, but also how to deal with being a racer, such as we do some PR training, they have coaching, they get a nutritionist, they get a trainer. They really start to understand and feel what it's like to be a racer and to be a successful racer beyond just what goes on the track. It's a great program. They're great kids. They have a great support system. They have parents that just devote themselves to this series. Not only do they get exposed to these great tracks, but also to the venues and to what it is to be around these great international stars and what it takes to be an international star.
Closed captioning of Motoring 2008 is brought to you in part by Buick Enclave, the finest luxury crossover ever.
Normally difficult to find a pet peeve with a Toyota product, not with the Highlander, and it concerns propping up the hood. Usually an easy exercise once you find the prop. Well, it's not hard to find the prop, as you can see, but releasing it is a whole different thing. Watch this, I've got to pull it, put some, almost hit me in the eye. I mean, you know, this is obviously a part waiting to break and an accident waiting to happen. Very unlike Toyota. All right, let's head to the Quaker State Garage. Join Bill Gardiner.
Brad, you know what? It's not uncommon for me to find customers' vehicles that are low 1, 2, sometimes 3 liters of motor oil, or 10 or 15,000 K past an oil change interval. So it makes me wonder if they're ever opening that hood, or if they ever knew that they had a prop rod holding up that hood at all. So maybe it's not going to be an issue, Brad, but I'll tell you, I don't really like the prop rods because they're usually right at the front edge of the hood where I've got to work, so they're typically in my way, and a lot of times I've got to come up with an alternate method of supporting the hood while I'm working on it. This week we managed to get our hands on the new Cummins turbo diesel Dodge pickup truck, and believe me, no prop rod on this hood. Now, Dodge has had the Cummins turbo diesel engine for many years in their pickup trucks, but it was 5.9 liters in displacement. Now they evolved that engine significantly beginning with the early 80s up until currently, and they dramatically increased the power, the fuel economy, and reduced the noise that that engine made. But this new 6.7 liter engine is a big change again. The first thing I noticed when I picked this truck up was dramatically quieter. Even on a cold start, that diesel engine was remarkably quiet. So there's been a big improvement again on that. 800 cc's increase on the displacement. It's still an inline 6, still turbocharged, still tons and tons of mid-range power and torque. You really need to experience the amount of mid-range acceleration this truck has. You know, for such a large, heavy vehicle, it's really incredible how hard this thing accelerates. Okay, shut her off. Now, 6-speed automatic transmission behind that Cummins engine. When you're cruising along at 100K in high gear, this thing's only turning 1,600 RPM. Very low engine speed, once again reduces the noise and improves the fuel economy. One of the things that Cummins is famous for is durability, reliability, great power, and great fuel economy when it's loaded. And that's one of the key differences between a gasoline engine and a diesel engine. You know, a gas engine can get pretty reasonable fuel economy when it's lightly loaded and you keep the speed down. But as soon as you increase aero drag, which is always there in a pickup truck, rolling resistance is always there, a load, you know, whether you're towing or hauling, those things all tend to have a negative impact on fuel economy, and that's where a diesel really wins the battle, because when they're loaded and towing and hauling, the fuel economy is not a heck of a lot worse than it is with it empty. With a gas engine truck, your fuel mileage really disappears. Now, the guys that use the trucks for towing or hauling, they've always loved diesels. They're gonna love this one. And I noticed that when I look on the highways and see the guys that are towing car haulers, horse trailers, implement trailers, big machinery behind their trucks, most of them are buying the Dodge with the Cummins engine. And when you buy a pickup truck and opt for a diesel engine, you're paying a big price up front for that diesel engine option, but it really does pay off over time. If you're using the truck for work and you're putting a lot of kilometers on that vehicle, it's going to pay off. Lower fuel costs, reduced maintenance, and durability of that engine. It's likely going to outlast the rest of the chassis, and you can't always say that about a gas engine when it's used under heavily loaded conditions. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardiner for Motoring 2008.
This is a 2007 Rolls-Royce Phantom. It is still, to this day, the symbol of the ultimate prestige vehicle. It is unique. There aren't that many of them produced. It is a handcrafted vehicle. Your average vehicle takes approximately 30 hours to build. The Rolls-Royce Phantom takes 260 hours to build. What's under the hood is a specially designed V12. The origins are the block of the BMW 760, but it has been particularly engineered for the Rolls-Royce Phantom. It is capable of 0 to 100 in under 6 seconds, which is pretty sprightly for a 5,500-pound luxury vehicle. Let me introduce you to probably the most legendary hood ornament ever, the Rolls-Royce Spirit of Ecstasy. As you can well imagine, this will make a nice souvenir for any number of people that may try to nab it. But there's a clever piece of engineering that's going to make sure that doesn't happen. Watch this. Oops. Again, exclusivity is what the Phantom's all about. We don't sell huge numbers in Canada. I think if we had a good year this year, we'd probably be selling around a dozen. In the case of inclement weather, if a passenger has forgotten their umbrella, not to worry. The Rolls-Royce Phantom provides one. And it's also accessible with this door closed when the front door is open, so a driver could get out and pop that umbrella. Now here's another feature I want you to see. Again, maximum convenience and comfort for the passenger in the rear. I don't have to reach out and close the door. As long as we have wealthy people in the world, and I think that's pretty much a given, I don't think we'll ever run out of buyers. There are always a group of people that want the very best, and Phantom is the very best.
We've got friends, family, and of course fans of the show from coast to coast in this great country of ours, from Liam and his folks originally from Newfoundland to my in-laws in BC and just about every place in between. And the one thing I don't understand as I travel across this country is the variation in gasoline prices. I was at my niece's wedding in Calgary and Lethbridge a week or so ago, and they were paying like $1.05 a litre out there, whereas at home in Milton, Ontario, it was like 91 cents. So wait a minute, don't they pump the oil out of the ground in Alberta? They got no sales tax. I don't get it. Now, my sister-in-law in Thunder Bay, we visited them a while ago. Gasoline there was about $1.12, $1.15. I can understand that maybe it costs money to ship the gasoline up there from the refineries in southern Ontario. But those tankers contain, what, 12 billion liters? How much diesel fuel does it take to transport it that far? Certainly not enough to make a 15-cent a liter difference in pricing. But if I don't understand that aspect of gasoline prices, there are three things I do understand, and pardon me if you've heard some of this before. First of all, the basic pricing mechanism is supply and demand. If you got a lot of something and nobody wants it, you better lower the price or you're going to have to eat it. It's Adam Smith Economics 101. The second thing, gasoline is cheap. On an inflation-adjusted basis, it's cheaper than it's ever been. It's the cheapest liquid you can buy per liter in a gas station. I mean, you'll pay 3 times as much for the same amount of water. And last time I looked, I don't get gasoline out of my taps in my bathroom. And the third thing about gasoline prices, if we do want to do something for the environment, reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, clean up the atmosphere, we got to raise the price. Adam Smith again, raise the price, the demand goes down, nothing else works. So if I don't understand the variability in pricing across this country, the rest of the aspects of gasoline pricing, it's not rocket science. I'm Jim Kenzie.
10 new crossover nameplates have emerged since Toyota first introduced the Highlander in 2001. So how does the 2008 model stack up? Well, it's a much better vehicle. Better looking by a long shot, even has a little attitude in it. It's more powerful and a lot more room inside. But you know what? The same could be said for its competition. But as we all know, Toyota has gained its reputation on quality. And as the Toyota president likes to say, quality begins with and is driven by smart engineering. And it's that kind of talk which they practice that gives consumers a comfort zone. And which is why, as I stand here now, that Toyota is the #1 seller of automobiles in North America. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
The car hit the ground nose first. As you can see, the engine actually came out of the car. I'm a little bit sore, but otherwise things are all right. I'm glad that we were in such a safe vehicle.
Motoring 2008 on TSN has been brought to you by the new Q horsepower from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses. And Michelin, a better way forward.